Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast on one of the rare occasions we're doing the whole show in English. My guest today can look back on a musical career that covers almost 3 decades. In the early to late 2000s, he was amongst the ringleaders of the thriving breakcore and MashUp scene, evolving with a vengeance out of jungle music. And within this time frame, he also transitioned to a much more somber and sublime sound, embodied by the Kilimanjaro DARKJAZZ Ensemble and its twin, the Mount Fuji Doom Jazz Corporation. And it doesn't stop there, but as his projects are almost too numerous to keep track, let me mention just his latest 3 creative outlets we actually talk quite a bit about in this episode. First, there's MANSUR, an ambient jazz trio with a very solemn and arabesque Latin sound. Then there's The Answer Lies Within the Black Void, a doom metal-esque collaboration with vocalist Martina Horvath. And finally, the LOVECRAFT SEXTET, basically his new adventures in dark jazz. But we went even further as our conversation meanders to stoicism, hallucinogens, the mysteries of ancient Egypt and ancient civilization in general, mentioning scholars such as Robert Anthony West, Robert Schock and Randall Carlson. We've covered a hell lot of ground here. So please, enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with the great Jason Köhnen.
Ladies and gentlemen, yeah! Called Intro.
Natürliche Ausrede.
Like it any closer, I hope you're licking it.
War das nicht ganz so schlimm oder nicht ganz so geil?
Was wirklich drauf anlegen könnte, man Suicide by Tiger begehen.
Es gibt noch andere Feinde. Wir werden nicht so viele Leute erschossen.
10.000 Mann, wir brauchen Pferde und Kanone.
Ich finde den Plan super. Die Welt geht zugrunde.
Hat die Kontrolle über sein Leben.
Alright, hey man, Jason, thanks so much for making the time.
You're welcome.
You're a very busy man not only these days, like you are a very busy man in general, aren't you?
I try to keep busy with the music. I've always had a lot of ideas, and I just need to express these ideas, and I find the time to do it, I guess.
I guess so. And you find it in numerous ways. I mean, you have more projects than other people know musicians, one can say.
I guess. I realized at one point, I think when I stopped making metal music or playing in the band in the early 90s, and when I switched to composing jungle music, I realized then that there was so much to offer with music, and there was so much to jump into, and so many genres and so many ways of composing and making music, that it became quite clear at an early stage that this was going to be my journey with music, or my relationship with music was to kind of dive into as many possible ways of creating music. I usually use a chef or cooking as a similar metaphor. There are cooks who stick to one recipe and perfect this, like let's say someone who perfects a perfect Italian dish. Uh-huh. And there's other chefs who want to experiment with every kind of form of spices, and let's say using physics and chemistry into their cooking. Yeah, and that's the kind of cuisine I chose for in that sense.
Okay, well, we can really start from there, because you said in the early 90s you were playing metal music, and then you were switching to jungle. I guess this was when the jungle scene started to emerge, right?
Yeah, around 94, 93, 94, 95, yeah.
When the rest of the world was listening to Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, exactly. Just before the dreadful new metal came about. So
you're not a friend of new metal?
No, I'm not against it, but for me, new metal brought out kind of all the worst aspects of metal rap, and I mean, usually crossovers can work, but I think new metal is a pretty good example of how crossovers do not work. Yeah.
Well, at least not in a creative sense, I would say. I mean, most of the bands who are still relative today are either just working on their legacy, like Korn, for example, and others like Deftones. I would say they weren't so much new metal to begin with. You know what I mean?
I would definitely not put Deftones into that category. Obviously, they kicked off at the same time as, you know, the Limp Bizkit and Korn and stuff like this. But for me, new metal is really more when there's the definite mix of rap metal and, in some sense, a kind of fashion that went with it. And attitude, you know, it's the kind of suburban American kids growing up to hip hop and metal and mixing this in a horrendous way. But Deftones for me, actually you could maybe see that Deftones was a more good evolution on grunge, because, you know, the emotion, and I would actually say that Deftones would be like the perfect evolution for a band like Pixies. If you would have the intensities of the Pixies and the way they would, Black Francis would use his voice, you know, the playing with the climaxes. Yeah. I think there's quite a lot of similarity there, actually.
Absolutely, I never thought of it like this, but it totally makes sense. Even when you think about these kind of emotional outbursts in both bands, yes, they're actually quite similar.
Yes. Okay. Some thinking went into this one.
Okay. Well, then check this out, because some thinking went into this one. You, when you started making jungle music, was this already under the name BONG-RA?
Let me think. No, I had. Well, composing, yes. I had a DJ name, another DJ name for, I don't know, a couple of months.
Yeah.
Which was, let me see. I think it was DJ Krusty. I just had my dreads as well. Terrible. And luckily there was obviously DJ Crust, who was part of Ronnie Size crew. So when I saw there was a DJ Crust, then thank God that, you know, for DJ Crust, that because I had Krusty with a K as well, and I think it was some kind of a joke with the Simpsons or something. I don't know, like Krusty Kreme, or I don't know,
the
whatever.
Clown,
Krusty the Clown, that's the one. So anyway, ridiculous. Then I thought about using DJ Skeletor, but and I think that's when it shifted to BONG-RA, because obviously, you know, the whole BONG-RA idea and name is a kind of a bastardized child of Sun-Ra and She-Ra. So, you know, it's a strange world of weirdness. So yeah.
Okay, when I said that some thought went into this, I had two versions how the name BONG-RA came about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
I'm curious.
Okay, so because you're also a jazz fan and musician, but well, basically a jazz fan, there was Sun-Ra. And so it went to Sun-Ra and BONG-RA because you were a weed-smoking jazz fan. This was the first idea. The second one, because you came from metal. I don't know if the band was around then, but there is a band called Bongzilla. Or Bongzilla.
Yeah, they
wait.
After, sorry, yeah.
So, and Bongzilla came, of course, from Godzilla. And one of the enemies of Godzilla is Mothra.
Okay, well, that's quite some thinking into that one. I mean, the first one is there's some truth in this. I wasn't such a weed smoker. Obviously, I had my period of smoking weed coming from Holland, as all kids do. Sonra, the name and the music definitely played the part. Also, actually, the fact that I've always been interested in Egyptology, the pyramids, etc. But yeah, I think, to be honest, it was a mix of the whole Masters of the Universe world with Skeletor, He-Man, She-Ra, because at that time when I stopped playing metal, I was in Celestial Season, my band, and we were kind of going into the stoner before stoner existed. And the year, I think the summer of 95 was the year where I intensively took mushrooms and acid. And I can remember tripping my balls off too, amongst others, the Masters of the Universe, the He-Man cartoons. So something must have stuck in there for sure. There's a funny side note in one of the BONG-RA songs on the Monsters of MashUp EP with the End User and Shitmat, where there's a song which is called "Hello, My Cock is an Aardvark." And this is literally from an acid trip where my cock
was an aardvark.
Morphed into an aardvark, and I had a lengthy discussion of a few hours with this aardvark, which was very interesting. It was very insightful and very sweet-looking aardvark. On the other point with the Bongzilla thing, these bands you had Bongzilla, Bong Ripper. These all were late, maybe early 2000s, and I think anyway, very late 90s, or I think more beginning 2000s. They were behind. They weren't on the ball.
They didn't took the shrooms in conjunction with the Masters of the Universe.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Do you realize how weird it is when you talk about taking mushrooms and the term Master of the Universe, because it plays somehow on the same tune, I would say.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. I don't know if it's that interesting to run off in a tangent about hallucinogenics.
I love this. I love this topic.
Well, linked to music, it's been fantastic. I can remember one weekend when I think, I'm not sure if it was the first or the second Caius album, if it was Blues for the Red Sun or Welcome to Sky Valley, but I think maybe Welcome to Sky Valley, because that one has a bit more rock, is a bit more catchy. But I remember tripping to then Sky Valley and disappearing into the amplifier of the speakers. I was at this friend's house. Magnificent stuff. And I mean, the whole psilocybin discussion has become more popular over the last years, where in right dosage, I think it should be a must for everyone to, I mean, it expands your universe and it expands your views on life, on you fall into a lot of cliches, being one with the universe, but these aren't cliches. It's actually experiences which people should go through to understand themselves and the world better. And then I think the whole journey is to figure out, what the fuck am I going to do with this information, and how am I going to adapt myself and link myself to everything which is linked with each other. So yeah, I'm totally on your side there, as it just offers a perspective that is kind of unique, and but it is there, and it's not something, I mean, it is an hallucination, of course, or can be, but then again, what is a hallucination exactly? So, and we have the ability to explore these frontiers. So why shouldn't we make use of this? Absolutely. these portals are there to be discovered and to be stepped into. I'm convinced that there's way more than meets the eye, and in that sense, creativity, I think, is a very important key to coming to understand, and is also one of these different portals to journey into these new realms. And this has become if not the most important part of me composing music nowadays. That's, I think, been the journey of 20 years, which in the last 2 years, or 1.5 years, I've finally come to realize what my purpose is now for making music, how I want to make music, for who I want to make music, and where I want the listener to take the listener. I realized that the first 10 years was just, searching for myself. Then the 5 years to follow was becoming an expert in the tools I use. And then I think the last 5 years, with especially the last 1.5, 2 years, is where I've realized that I've mastered these tools, and I am now on the journey of opening or creating this music, and then especially with the MANSUR project, where I want to enable people to go on finding these new territories wherever they may be.
When you talk about the MANSUR project, I think one can see a way, or the way of yours, transitioning more and more into these, transcendent realms of music, if I can call it that. Of course, with the Kilimanjaro Darkjazz Ensemble, there were some melodies and patterns that point in this direction. With the thing with the 5 eyes, I would say even more. And these 2 records, Temple and Karma, they have this very warm sounding and kind of inviting kind of sound, and it's actually fun to think what will happen if you take mushrooms to these records.
Mm-hmm.
Because drug infused the Kaya stuff was, this one is the MANSUR is more like, I don't know, can you say it's made for something like this?
Yeah, I definitely, it has been the purpose for sure. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the word transcendental. That's how I like to describe the music. It's best. It's absolutely made with spiritual intentions, and what I mean with spiritual is to go out of the physical realm. And experience it in a non-physical way, either by daydreaming, some kind of form of escapism. And you're right. If you look at a part of my catalog, and there you can, for me, it's like a diary. You do see with Kilimanjaro, there are some songs. These are these first steps into this. There's some magic moments. There's and then it goes back. 5 Eyes, it takes that step further, and then with MANSUR, it's like, okay, let's make it a bit of a stupid example, but it's like Kilimanjaro and 5 Eyes was a kind of initiation for myself to become some kind of musical shaman, and MANSUR is like, okay, I've done the kind of first tests with my my own drugs to see how this works, and now I'm going to try to perfect this. And it's for me the first MANSUR, the Temple, and that's also when you have the LP cover, which is red with this yellowish glow with the warmth. It's trying to represent when you sit in a train or in a car and you have the sun shining in your eyes with your eyes closed. You always have, in general, for me, it's red, and I have these kind of sun focal points. You need to have the sun shining in your eyes. This for me represents how I see what I call the source, which is the universe, God, whatever, Yahweh, Allah. It doesn't matter. It's the same word for the same principle. That's that source where we are all connected. That's also how I philosophize about music and talent, because I'm convinced at this moment in my life that everyone has the same talent if you work for it, if you develop it. All the knowledge of the universe, everything is there. It's for you to discover and how to discover and to get it. I mean, if it wasn't Einstein, someone else would have discovered this theory of relativity. If it wasn't Tesla, discovered things which he said were that the Egyptians had already discovered. So everything is already there. All the music already exists in all shapes and forms. It's for you as a creative person or as a human being to tap in to this source and find your way to interchange and communicate with this. And that's why I think with some musicians, you connect better with other. With Dimitri, who I barely know, we've met each other less than a handful of times, but there is this connection with music, because I think, and I'm speaking for myself, I don't know his theories on this, but there's probably a connection which is closer to a specific part of this source where we tap into a specific range which makes us connect to each other. And that's why I think when people improvise music and they they say they zone out, they space out, my opinion is they tap into that specific part of the source and they are connecting on a non-physical plane, a non-physical realm. And that's where that magic comes, because it's
Yeah, I think I understand. It's like when you are fishing in a well in this realm of creativity, and Dimitri somehow is able to reach the exact same well to do the work with you. Is somehow
kind of? It would be maybe more that we would both have the same. Let's say the same little bay where we go fishing, because that's for us the most interesting place to go fishing, where the nicest kind of fish can be found. So so we kind of bump into each other there, and it's like, oh wow, cool, you're fishing there too. Okay, let's fish together because we both like this spot here. And then maybe some other guys fishing in a more barren area because he likes that kind of terrain, and it's infinite. So there's
no scarcity.
Spots. Absolutely not. No. It's it's infinite, and I think everything is already there. But then we're going into metaphysical kind of theories and ideas which are, I think, very strongly linked to creativity, because if you look at any kind of occultist writings or theosophy or wherever you want to look into it, when you have the kind of myths and legends or the theories about the light and the dark, and what makes us different from other animals, or what drives this divine spark in us, then creativity. Let's say within the eternal battle between night and dark and light and dark, it's always where the dark forces want to disable or destroy the creative in the people. If you have, let's say, take an example of a theosophist called Rudolf Steiner. He's been controversial, as most theory and theosophist occultists can be. But when you have his ideas about Luciferian and Armanic forces, the one is spiritual and creative, and the one is materialistic, and it's always that battle where I mean, you look at, you can take any kind of myth of, even look at Star Wars or Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
There are these, they're not there for nothing. These are universal languages which are depicted in various forms.
The eternal fight between good and evil.
Yeah, and yin and yang is the perfect illustration.
Right, because
of this,
good and evil is already judging.
Yeah, and it will shift. Everything is cyclical. Everything comes and goes. So we're probably in a more darker yin and yang now, and in the next great solar cycle in I don't know what is 2,600 years, or the bigger one in 25,000 years, when we'll reach another golden age. And it's there. It's happened before, and it will happen again. These things are cyclical. So, yeah.
You put a lot of thought into a lot of things. But
I do my best.
Successfully. When you said Rudolf Steiner, you mean was he the guy who invented the Waldorf school?
Waldorf School doesn't ring a bell with me. I haven't looked into his autobiography. What I do know about Steiner, and it's not Steiner himself, but obviously at the beginning of the 20th century, if you have Steiner, but if you have Carl Jung, there were psychologists or occultists or theosophists, which obviously gave inspiration to the National Socialist Party, to the Nazis. Carl Jung has been Nietzsche as well. So obviously, there are controversial parts, but my opinion is always you can get inspiration out of everyone, but it depends what you do with that inspiration.
Of course.
You can take good and bad. If just dropping the reference with the Nazi Party, you can take hold of the swastika icon for good intentions or bad, because from origin the swastika means good luck. It's from Hinduism.
Yeah, Hinduism, India.
Yeah, and it used to be a lovely, a prosperous symbol, a symbol of the eternal cycle of the sun.
Just like the yin and yang, kind of.
Yeah, so, people with good intentions and bad intentions can be inspired and use it for their good or their bad purposes. That's why I love using this example when, I think it's, just as a final comment on this, but I think it's time that we gave back the swastika its good and its positive purpose, because there are scriptures and there are beautiful illustrations and carvings where this symbol is depicted in Tibet and Nepal. So it's time we gave the decency and the honor back to this this beautiful symbol and take away this the bad connotations behind it. Wouldn't be a bad idea, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see you. But as someone who comes from Germany, I can say it's I guess there's a long road ahead, because it's too contaminated with.
That's the thing. I can completely understand it. I mean, it's an immensely powerful symbol. It's. I think if you would try to, in how far you can be objective, but it's the symbol and the symbolism and the way that it's being designed. I mean, it's probably one of the most powerful symbols that's there. Even if you look at it at a design way and at the way that it's left an impact. So you're right. I agree. On one part, it could be maybe it would be better to leave it there as a symbol of, how do you call it, representation of something that should never happen again. But on the other hand, I think as well, okay, maybe it's time to give it back to where it came from, and that was good.
To reclaim it somehow.
Exactly. Anyway, so that was just how the hell did we get here?
Well, that's pretty much the intention of this podcast. We go the road less traveled sometimes. The good question is, how do we get back? But when you talk about symbols, which you seem to be really into, and in the beginning you mentioned ancient Egypt, which is of course also a culture of symbols, the hieroglyphs. How did your fascination with Egypt came to play?
I think most kids, when they grow up, are probably fascinated by, either dinosaurs or pyramids or both. What would be cooler with dinosaurs running around the pyramids? Wow,
nothing. I was fascinated by both, actually.
Okay, so same here. At one point, I kind of let go of the dinosaurs. I think Jurassic Park killed it for me. With it took away some kind of mystery for me when it became expressed in that way.
Because it was so visible?
Yeah, maybe. But I think, the difference between dinosaurs and pyramids, dinosaurs, it's okay. Let me say differently. Pyramids, there is a huge mystery still surrounding the pyramids. With dinosaurs, it's quite straightforward. Okay, you can find new species. There can be, a bit of a variation, but it's pretty limited to where we can go with the mystery of the dinosaurs.
It's pretty much well explained.
Exactly. The pyramids, what I find fascinating about the pyramids, obviously, I started with the with the fun parts and the exciting parts where, were they built by aliens? And at one point you start digging deeper and deeper. And what I found amazing about the pyramids is like, okay, we all want to know who, how, why, and what was it done. So you start with the basics, who built the pyramids, and how did this originate like this. But the more I started doing research into the pyramids, the more the less answers I was getting, questions I was getting answered, and I was just getting more questions thrown at me, where at one point I was fascinated by the research of the mathematics that came out of the pyramids. So I'll try to explain where the people that inspired me the most. Yeah, firstly, you have unfortunately he passed away a few years ago. It's John Anthony West.
Yes,
he was the most renegade researcher into the pyramids.
Definitely.
Then obviously Graham Hancock with his books, who opened it to a bigger crowd. We have Chris Dunn, and Chris Dunn, the engineer with the Giza power plant theory. He's a long-term engineer. 40 years plus experience, and when he visited the pyramids for the first time and inside, he was the first to put the theory forward that the pyramid could be a machine, that it was some kind of power plant. Okay. It could be a frequency power plant used with water to, and that's where it's fascinating. I can't remember all the details, unfortunately. Then you have Robert Schoch, the geologist who came to the Sphinx and realized, after being invited by John Anthony West, that by the water erosion, that the Sphinx had to be way older.
Yeah, because there was rain not in the time when...
Exactly.
Better, there was no rain in the time when the Sphinx is said to be built, but he said this must be the result of years and years and decades of heavy rain.
Yeah. And then we have my biggest hero, which is Randall Carlson. I don't know if you know Randall.
Yeah, the name rings a bell.
He looks like Santa Claus. They always say, whenever you've watched a podcast from Randall Carlson, they say, that's too much Randall you can handle. So he's amazing. Randall Carlson is actually, he's a homo universalis. He's, experienced in geology, astronomy, architecture, sacred geometry, a Renaissance man, and with a lot of knowledge, but a lot of self-education. So obviously, he's not taken seriously by established learned people, because he knows too much of too many things, which is a threat usually for the establishment. But when I did the research into all this, and the pyramids, I visited the pyramids as well, but then it became a larger picture, and I'll try to explain where the fascinations for the pyramids go for me. So my theory is that the pyramids were not built by the Egyptians, so the dynasty, the Old Kingdom. This was a legacy civilization which was left, and which is also being written in hieroglyphs by the pharaohs, that the pyramids were there and they were a legacy civilization. So the fact that Robert Schoch is a good link by saying with this water erosion that the Sphinx is linked to the pyramids, and it has to do with the equinoxes, the precessions, that we can then look, okay, they must be older. Then Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson brought out the theory that around 12,000 years ago, there's something which is called the Younger Dryas. The Younger Dryas is the big climactic shift. The most logical explanation, and the proof is coming in, is that there was a cataclysm, and most probably meteorites that hit. So there's this gigantic shift of climate, which then, where the deluge, the flooding myths came from, and these are universal floods,
like in the Bible, etc.
Exactly, and you have them in China, and you have them in America. So my thoughts are the pyramid builders were a civilization who predated the Younger Dryas, the antediluvian civilization. That's where the BONG-RA antediluvian LP is completely inspired by this theory. So my idea is, human beings have been around for around 200,000 years in the form that we are, with the same brain size, with the same capacity of learning as we do now. So in a matter of 4 or 5 generations, if we look now, we can see how quickly we learn. We learn from our fathers and our great grandfathers, etc., etc. So these people must have learned as well. But this was the first time where a civilization started. So in my opinion is these people started off correctly, harmoniously, in balance with nature, with the universe, in another epoch, in an epoch where, if you look at the great solar cycles, if you look at the solar magnetism, it has a different effect to our body and our way of thinking than we are now. We're in the Kali Yuga epoch now, which is the dark age of the great solar cycle. So these people started off on the right foot. They grew in a different way, obviously with a complete different mindset that we have, and I'll come to that later. So these people expanded, and we are taught that civilizations is meant of either technological advancement or having money or materialism. I think these people created a civilization which was based on harmony, which was based on unifying themselves with the earth, unifying themselves with the animals, and understanding how to keep a balance. What we are looking for now, always balance. So I think these civilizations grew to a point where the pyramids are the remainder, and either they knew something was coming, because astronomy has always been, if we predate, has always been an immense part of civilizations. So I think these people either knew what were coming, and they created the pyramids as one of the reasons, purposes, to leave as much knowledge behind for when the disaster would come, that eventually when humanity would re-civilize itself again, and the more advanced the civilization would become, the more they would understand the pyramid. So if you look at the beginning of let's say the 18th century, we were nowhere near understanding, because people were after gold, were after treasures. Oh, the treasure has to be the gold chest. now the treasure is knowledge. Now we have advanced at least in that 200 years. Who knows what the influence the pyramids had before, because the Egyptians used them. The Egyptians used them for their ceremony to pass into the afterlife. So they adapted and used this as a legacy of the civilization. So now we're understanding, the more you dig into the pyramid, the more we find these mathematical formulas, that it's linked to the magnetic north, that the fact that there's pi, that there's 2 pi, that that it's placed in a specific area of the earth where there's this immense, strong natural energy. So I think it's the kind of an all-encapsulating kind of
lore,
immaterial
maybe?
made encyclopedia.
Yeah.
And the more you look into it, the more you get out. And so going back, so when this Younger Dryas happened, so you had this cataclysm. So you have this long buildup of a harmonious civilization, these antediluvian people. Then obviously there's an immense trauma that happens to the human race, because after the Younger Dryas, it said that anything between 50 to 80% of humanity died out, megafauna completely extinct. So imagine that you have this huge earth shattering event, decades, maybe centuries of people having to live in caves, having to scavenge. That's where the hunter-gatherers came from. It's now proven that human trauma is taken up in the DNA, even as far as just from the mother. It's now known that if a mother has been traumatized by the way let's say, for example, by rape, this becomes a trauma which is then inherited by the child. So DNA trauma is a fact, and just imagine what kind of trauma humanity must have had if you experience this cataclysm. So I think this trauma is a huge thing. And then Graham Hancock says we are a people with amnesia, because it's just impossible that our history is 600 years. They say, yeah, but why can't we find more? Well, if you look at the extent of the Younger Dryas catastrophe, it has wiped out nearly anything of, so moving forward, then we are actually a civilization or a people that are not from the original startup. We are a species with a trauma, and we have gained knowledge from this previous civilization. This is what comes back in the legends of the people from the sea, of Quetzalcoatl, of the bearded men who came out of all parts of the sea, and yet they always had this handbag, and this could symbolize knowledge with the pine cone for the pineal gland. Anyway, there's myths everywhere, like with the deluge, that these people who could have been the survivors of the great deluge, of this cataclysm, who had knowledge and who started to re-educate these hunter-gatherers. Well, then obviously we are starting a new civilization on the wrong foot, because we are not walking into trial and error. And I think the fact that we haven't restarted a civilization from scratch, but with a helping hand, it has increased the way of us falling into wrong patterns, into where aspects like the bad virtues, like greed and like materialism, have taken its toll, because we've been kids who have been given too much technology and not been able to grow up with them.
Wow.
That was it. Let me take a sip.
Yeah, of course. I've heard about some aspects of these pretty coherent story, but before I come to the but part, what is interesting when you said maybe before the Younger Dryas, before the cataclysm, the people have somehow expected the disaster and probably built the pyramids as a storage of knowledge. What is interesting, I don't remember who it was, but there was some sort of scientist who was trying to upload the conscience and knowledge of humanity, basically, and somehow send it into space. So, because he said, if the world collapses, like with war, climate, all the beautiful stuff that's flying around, then it would be a disaster, of course, but I would feel much more comfortable if I know that all the knowledge, all of our achievements are saved for someone. Mm-hmm. So there is a similarity there. But what I don't get, I mean, obviously first there were cavemen, and they now I'm missing the word. They evolved. Mm-hmm. into Homo erectus, etc. Homo sapiens. And you mean like, and then the civilization became advanced based on harmony, fall apart, and then we are like the second version?
I mean, that's where if you look at prehistory and myths and legends, that's where there are some interesting stories where I'm not sure how to interpret them because if you look at prehistory, for example, you look at the Sumerians. You have the list of kings from the Sumerians, mm-hmm. and they have the list of kings, but they have a group of kings which are from prehistory, but which are incredibly old, which have something like one king who reigned for, 1,300 years or something, or incredibly long times. I think even into the 5 or 10 thousands of years. So, and then when you come to the human kings or the history as we have now, then you have the normal ages. Historians, they take this as, okay, so you have, for the Sumerians, it's one list, there's this one continuation, but our historians have divided this into kind of 3 segments because they don't find it plausible, obviously, that these people could have lived so long. Yeah. That's where the interesting part comes, because not only in Sumeria, but there are more than enough myths where there are they call them demigods, or the kings who lived longer. Obviously, you have the legends of I think it's then when you have the Enki or the Anunnaki, where you have where there's been an intermingling of. I don't know. I find them interesting. I've looked into them. I don't deny that this could have happened, because they're as much plausible as what I'm saying, or whatever any historian says about prehistory, because there is just basically no proof. Yeah. I mean, of course, there's proof that there were people in caves. Okay, for sure, but. I find it just as implausible that cavemen or humans in our form, with our brain capacity, were not able to advance for, let's say, 185,000 years, and then in the last 15 years, or let's say 195,000 years, didn't move their asses by sitting in the caves and clubbing their women and dragging them and hunting mammoths for all this time, and then suddenly, we've evolved and moved incredibly in these 2,000 years. Okay, it's possible, but I don't find that plausible either. I would say that, okay, if you have 200,000 years, it seems plausible that maybe, let's say you have 100,000 years of cavemanish style stuff, but then if you take 50,000 years of people to develop slowly, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can reach, some interesting stuff. And I mean, it is. I don't know. Have you heard of the? I just have to put my battery on. Just a second. Can we?
We just let it roll.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, because I see my laptop is
running out of juice.
Yes. There we go.
Okay.
So yeah, just one thing about that with that time span, because they always said that our civilization, humanity, started around 6,000 years ago, recorded history, and then suddenly a few years ago, or a decade ago, they found Göbekli Tepe in Turkey.
Yeah, and they don't know what to do with it.
Exactly, and bye all these big people with all their diplomas saying, "Yo, no, it cannot be older than." So and just imagine. I'm convinced that there's a lot of information that has been hidden and that's been taken away from us, because there are narratives. Obviously, in the past we had the religious doctrine. Now we get the science doctrine. So, people in power will always try and take away information from us. And but then luckily we have all these people I mentioned when it comes to the past, where independent researchers are making way more advancements than establishment historians.
I got you. Do you know this story about this lost civilization in the Amazon?
The one from recently, from not long ago, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, a couple of years back when they
were throwing the spear at this helicopter or this airplane.
No. I don't mean this. This is a bigger picture. Like,
okay.
It was when the conquistadores returned from South America, from the Amazon. And I don't know if it was Cortés, but maybe he was, who said, we met people, we have met a civilization, the city of gold, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, yeah.
So, but as the Amazon is a pretty hard spot to travel to and through, it took the Spanish crown, I guess, 80 years before someone else tried to go there and look for these. And this was then it was 80 years back. So he went there, found nothing, not a sign, nothing, just the jungle. So he went back and said, okay, the conquistadors, they have bullshitted us, basically. Maybe this was the fever, or they were just telling stories. I don't know. I haven't found anything. And pretty much, as the Amazon is really a hard place to go and look for stuff, it was overlooked for centuries, basically. And just of late, I mean like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, something like this, but don't quote me on that. They found, by taking pictures from the air, there were structures of roads and cities. And so they had the incentive to say, okay, we have to check this out because we don't know what this is. Yeah. And they went there and they found the ruins of a civilization totally eaten up by the jungle and only partly visible because they chopped down the rainforest. And the theory now is this. There was this civilization when Cortés got there, and it's a civilization we know nothing about. And probably he and the conquistadors brought smallpox or some illness that the immune system of the indigenous peoples wasn't ready for. So they tragically died out. But there are these ruins, and no one really knows what they were and who they belong to.
Yeah, I remember seeing these. Not X-ray, but how do you call it? These light, the temperature picture.
Yeah, something
exactly.
Like this.
And it was huge. It spanned over kilometers of. I mean, that's the fascinating thing. I mean, and just imagine the day when the Arctic and Antarctica, when because I'm convinced that there were civilizations there. It's clear there are written pieces from, I don't know if it was Herodotus or Plato, anyway, the old Greeks, where there are information passed down that the poles were at one point, there was green, there was a tropical weather, Greenlands on the poles. So, and if you look at the size of Antarctica, I mean it's huge, it's huge landmass, and you have it. that's why where it's interesting, where you don't know what governments get up to, because there have been periods, I think, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, where countries like Russia, Norway, Germany, and the UK were intensively, researching and looking into parts of Antarctica. So,
Really?
Yeah. That's even going back to the occultism of the Nazis. There you have a whole specific mission. I think it was 1938, 1939, where they went on missions to the Antarctica. I think it's something called Neuschwabenland. Where they had these and the Norse went there, the Russians went there, because obviously there were there's myths of civilizations everywhere. You have the and I think from the Arctic you have obviously the myth of the Atlantean civilization, but from the north you have the myth of the Hyperborean civilization, which is then kind of linked at one part, to the gateway to a possible hollow earth or whatever. But it's fascinating, and it's strange, but in all these myths there is a symbolism of truth, and if you have people who didn't know how to read and write, obviously the best way to teach young people or teach people is by stories, by legends. And then obviously you have to make it a bit more interesting for people to remember it. I mean, if you take Lord of the Rings, the core of the story that's being told, obviously it's made beautiful with different people, with the orcs and whatever, and Sauron and everything. But at the basis, these are universal stories which are being told. So even with the Hebrew alphabet, where numerology is such an incredible part of the way that writing has happened, and when you decipher the Hebrew words, where they have an amazing and beautiful numerology linked with the words, and that's fascinating. I mean,
It totally is, and if you look for similarities within the different cultures, you actually do find a few, like these demigods, for example, that the tales that there was something before man, but not completely detached from it, like some bridge to something else. Like there were the gods, the demigods, and men. You had this in ancient Greek, for example, of course. And in many other religions or historical tales. And you always have this hero's journey, just like in Lord of the Rings, where you don't know that you have been chosen for X, so you have to go through very, very hard times, but you will come out on the other side, like slay the dragon, return with the gold to your people. Something like this. Yeah,
it's, Homer's Odyssey is obviously, the template for all these stories, but I think the blueprint for Homer's Odyssey is basically the blueprint for every human being, and in that particular area it was more linked to men, because men were the warriors. But I think now it's become universal. But it's man's journey to discover himself, and it's like in every teaching is like you become a better person by the hardships you manage to conquer,
right? And
that dragon is that thing that you fear, and if you manage to conquer that and slay that dragon, I mean, you make steps, it's I think it's the hand guide to coming, the best possible self, the best possible you can become. That's jumping onto another tangent from here, and linking it to the music, then going back to MANSUR. This is basically where Karma has been inspired from, because Karma is basically fully inspired on the teachings of the Stoics. It's
good.
dedicated to Stoicism. Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, these have been the teachers for me in at least the last 3-4 years, which have, made me become the person who I was always trying to become. And before that, I admit I failed miserably. I took quite a lot of drugs. I drank. I wasn't honest to myself. I was not completely honest to other people. Didn't have guidance to where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. That's why I decided to stop drinking and doing drugs and smoking like 4 years ago, and decided now it's time to completely change. This is it stops here. And then I started, working out, reading more, and Stoicism, kind of became my teachings. And that's why with Karma, the first song on the album is Aurelius, which is obviously dedicated to Marcus Aurelius. And, it's, the songs Amor Fati, Memento Mori. These are basically for me a thank you to these teachings. And hopefully if young people or whoever sees the album and say, oh, I've seen this word Memento Mori before, what is it? Hopefully get them interested in the teachings of the Stoics, because I think it's powerful.
It is. I just got the book from Marcus Aurelius, and it's not really a reader's read. It's something to, I don't want to say meditate about it, but it kind of is, because you have to read the page, think about it, read it again. It's not like I just read a book from Merlin Sheldrake about mushrooms, for example.
Oh, amazing. Merlin Sheldrake is great. Yeah. Him and his father.
Yes,
are,
Robert Sheldrake.
Yes.
Let's not even start with Terence McKenna. And while the Merlin Sheldrake book is a very scientifically literate book, but it's fun to read. It sparks interest and excitement, which is the best thing that a science book can do. And then when you go to Marcus Aurelius, this is something like, ooh, okay, this is not a good time. This is the hard time.
Marcus Aurelius, for me, when I read meditations, and like you say, you just pick it up and you read a part and then you stop. The best way I can explain meditations for me when I read this, it's, you have that voice in your head, that your conscience that tell you, okay, this is not good, you're being a dick, or, man up, or, whatever. Whenever I read Marcus Aurelius, it's like that voice is giving me these kind of reciting these things to work on. It's like if he was tapping into that conscious part and learning it for himself and writing that down. And whenever I read it, it's like, okay, it's like every time it's a kick in the backside. It's like, man up, and it's so inspirational. It's like, we all have our moments, when we feel sorry for ourselves, or, oh God, everything's so tough. But that's what I like about the Stoic way of life is, it's you keep on pushing yourself, and I don't like victimhood. I mean, we can all be the victim at one part, and sometimes it's understandable. But I think a victimhood, playing the victim, is very damaging, especially for yourself, because I think a victimhood mindset doesn't give you the right energy to move along. And what I love about the Stoics is like, whatever happens to you, and some people say, but it's it's not empathic or it's not emotional. I think it's the opposite. I think it's like you have to step up, because you have to be prepared to be there to help others and helping yourself, but you have to be ready. And you cannot wait to sulk, because you don't know what the next moment is going to bring. And sulking is going to waste time, that, comes to the memento mori, take each day as it is, and, wake up as if it's your last. And victimhood doesn't work with this, because it makes you lie down in bed and, and be sad. Sometimes sulking, it's good for the inspiration, but, you have to snap out of it. And, going back to your first question, is like, where do you find the time? I think without knowing it, the way that I work and this kind of memento mori principle has probably automatically been always linked to how I make music, because I don't want to miss out. I could die tomorrow. I'm going to die at least in 20-25 years.
Oh, come on, man.
It'll be good, even if it's tomorrow. I don't mind, because I'm doing the best that I can. And when I look at one of my big purposes, which is to be creative, that's where I see where my talent and my gifts lies. Other people have it in other departments. For me, it's being a musician or a creative, and hopefully it brings some joy. But it's like there's still so much to be done, and stop messing around and do it, but do it good. I mean, it's not quantity, it's still quality.
Yes.
But I swear to God, when you are in a mindset, when you are healthy, when you are focused, when you are disciplined, tapping into this source, and for maybe focused religious people, that's why I've come to understand them better. That when they say, God's there or Christ is in you or whatever, I understand them. Once you know how to tap in, I mean, Tesla was right. It's free energy. I mean, it's there, it's like, wow, it's amazing. It's just, for me, my heroes are, I think Christ, the idea is fine, and especially how, example, Rupert Sheldrake discusses and how he interprets Christ. I think it's beautiful, very inspiring, and it's made me become more aware of the symbolism and the metaphor of the Christ being. But if the Christ being is being able to tap into that universal, I mean, Jesus Christ, then it's a joy to be alive, but it will be a joy to be dead, because that where you're going to go afterwards is going to be fucking amazing, I mean, it's not, I'm convinced.
It's not like when you go, you've left the better part. More like, if you enjoyed this, wait for what's coming.
I think when we say what's the meaning of life, and it always will be hopefully open to discussion, but take an Odyssey of Homer. That could come pretty close to the meaning of life. If you look at, we know that we have a start and a finish. We know that we have one certainty, it's death. So it's a journey. It's a journey from A to B. And we have to do stuff in this journey. You can do whatever you want. You can go from nihilism to spirituality to hedonism, whoever. And you can find the teachers that you want to fulfill that journey. But I think the purpose is, and these teachings and these teachers, weren't wrong, because the positive effect which a Buddha has given, or a Marcus Aurelius, or a Christ, or whatever, you name a Krishnamurti or whatever, these are incredibly powerful things. So I think these people were on the right way, if we would compare them to, I don't know, destructive hedonists like an Emperor Caligula. It's like, you don't want to go there.
Yeah.
If we have a beginning and an end, which we do, that's one truth we have, then the journey has to be the meaning, has to be the purpose.
Right.
However you fill in that purpose, I mean, that's your right that you have, and some people will be more lucky than others, some longer, whatever, but you have to do what you think is pure and especially is honest to yourself, you know. And they, I'm, far from being the one, who, or let's say it's been said millions of times, but I think I bumped into it again not long ago when I was watching an interview with Jordan Peterson, and it hit. It said, I think the hardest thing you have to do is tell the truth. And that's fucking hard sometimes.
Yeah.
And think about it, and then sit back and say, okay, how often do I even lie to a day, even to yourself, even minuscule, stupid things? It's still a lot. And you're like, why? Why is it so hard to tell the truth? And I think that's the journey, because afterwards it'll be another phase, and I think the more hardships you go through, the more the truth becomes a weapon for you, because I think they go hand in hand. I think people who experience a death of close ones, or really hardships in their life, they turn out to be the best people. They turn out, unless the trauma is too big and they get fucked up by just losing it into drugs. So
some of the best people came from pretty fucked up backgrounds, I would say. For sure, some of the most creative people did. And to just, I don't know who said the quote, but it's pretty good when you said don't dwell in your pain, or don't make your suffering your identity. You know what I mean? There's this quote, maybe it was from Churchill, I don't know. If you're going through hell, keep going. And it's pretty catchy, if you ask me.
It's a perfect concept for a black metal band in any case. So
yeah, it totally is. Just to put my teeth into the swing back to music. We talked a lot about MANSUR, but wasn't your latest record the Lovecraft Sextet?
Yes, that's the new adventures into the dark jazz territory.
Yeah.
I just there wasn't an outlet at the moment creatively to continue on the dark jazz adventure. There was obviously Kilimanjaro and then the Five Eyes a bit, but with MANSUR I moved into the transcendental. So I gloomy weekend, and then I just the ideas were already there, because this album's done, but the next one is already made as well, which is more kind of John Carpenter inspired dark jazz. So it has this more of this 80s vibe to it. And now I've started working on the third album, which would be out then in 2023 or 22. That's again, once the floodgates opens, it's, I live in the forest now, and I go for walks, and I start composing and these albums by walking. And it's, I make the sketches in my sketchbook and the concept, and then it creates itself basically. It's very strange, but I don't know. I think probably like a painter or a writer, once you have found what works best for you, you're not actually working to. You're not forcing anything. Let me say,
it
you're
just
working,
comes out of you.
It is. It's part of who you've become, and it's amazing. And I've turned into quite of a bit of a recluse. So I live in the forest by myself with my cat, and it's beautiful. I'm really deep in the forest in the Utrechtse Heuvelrug, that's fine. I mean, for most people, the corona has been, of course, it's horrible, but I put myself in lockdown every day. I mean, I've isolated myself anyway. So
Why did you do that? Was it just like, have you always been like that, or were there too many things about society that didn't went well with you?
Yeah, it's a combination. I've always, obviously being performing for so many years and traveling so much and having so many people and so many parties, and which I didn't like that much in the first place, and then especially in the last years of performing, where you have to force yourself to be social. I mean, the last years of my BONG-RA shows, where and I was traveling alone, I was literally crying, and I did not want to go to these shows. I was in the hotel, and then feeling sad. The part of the life I was in, everything in the personal life wasn't going well at all, and I was I did not want to go out. I just wanted to go to sleep, and you then. The thing is, it becomes you start taking such a disliking to having to perform, because obviously the people are there, they want fun, and it's a party, and you're in your hotel, you sleep till 2 a.m, so you come out and you prefer just to chill out. Then you're completely sober and tired, then you get taken into this world where there's an explosion of energy which is not corresponding with where you are, and everyone wants to see you, and is either high or drunk or both, and that's fine and good for them, but I thought at one point, God, it's not correct. I'm the one here now who should be providing them the fun, the good energy, and I'm nowhere near on the energy level or the interest where they are. I just want to go back to the hotel, read my book, or go back home and be with my cat, and just and then at one point it's like, okay, but this is making my money, this is my income, and then that's what I said at one point. Okay, this stops now. This isn't it's just destructive in all manners. So and because before that I would then when I would wake up, when I would still drink, I would just or either I would just get drunk when I would arrive, and it's like, okay, to the promoter, get me as many gram of whatever you can get, and and then you'd need the whole week to recover, and then you have that's this. It's terrible. It's good to undergo. Talking about that hell, that's not the hell. You go through it for a long time, but then it's like, well, that's done. That's it's not good.
Yeah, and especially when there's this persona of the towering figure of BONG-RA, this dark master of ceremony. You wouldn't expect someone to be sad going on stage and performing a song like "I Am the God of Hellfire."
Exactly. Yeah. It is. I've bumped into some videos of some festivals I was playing, where I know what my mindset was, and when I look at myself performing there, it's painful to watch, because I wasn't in a good place at all, and I can see it in my body language, and I didn't dare to look into the crowd, and I was just, the only thing I would look at would be on the clock of my laptop. It's like, 2 more minutes gone. Okay, still, I was just counting down, and it's like, okay, well, this song's 4 minutes, so when this song's done, that means there's 4 minutes less of this show to do. You
sound like, it sounds like I don't know, I was in class when you like make all these little squares and check them off when as the minutes go by.
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's and then also being so habituated to being either drinking or having some drugs, because that would give you the stimulus to connect with the people. I just couldn't connect anymore. It's and that's the worst thing, and it wasn't cool to them. I'd always give my best, but the best thing I could explain, because I tried this once, and this happened at Bangface. At once I played at the Bangface in UK, and it was a strange kind of out of body experience. And I was, I was sober, but I thought, okay, I'm going to, the people want to see, the BONG-RA and with the dreads going everywhere and wild. So I forced myself to start off this way, and I got all the energy. But at one point, I kind of stepped out of my body, and I saw myself performing, and I'm like, you're a joke of yourself, In Dutch, we have this word. It's called persiflage. You're like
a persiflage.
Yeah, you're like you're acting to be who you were, but you're not. And who are you kidding? So yeah, stop. So, and then I was like, yeah, that's and then gradually it was having to realize, because obviously performing for 10 to 15 years, reaching the age of mid 40s. It became, a very easy way of making your living, and also what you knew. It's like, what the hell am I going to do? What am I going to do? I've got no other experience. So it's you have this, you're weighing the balance between those options.
And was this when Kilimanjaro Dark Jazz Ensemble happened to you? Or
what do you mean?
Not happened to you, but there was. When did you start? When did you stop the BONG-RA shows?
I did my farewell tour in 2018. That was the end of the era tour.
Okay, so Kilimanjaro was before.
Yeah,
Much
Kilimanjaro
before.
We stopped in 2013.
Okay, so but how? I mean, was Kilimanjaro something like exploring other creative territories, like an antidote for the heavy BONG-RA stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. It's at one point I came up, or it probably maybe exists, but I use the term schizophrenic. So multiple musical identities, but it gave me the balance. BONG-RA was the aggression, it was the hedonism, the chaos, the nihilism, and Kilimanjaro was the calm, the yin and yang again. It was those two opposites which I needed. Now, lot of projects some of them are opposites of themselves, but it's more a kind of small solar system which works around the sun. So it's more harmonious. But those two were opposites, and I mean they both. Kilimanjaro, unfortunately, we didn't manage to pull through the chaos. I mean, I kind of call it that around. Let's say I had my own younger Dryas period where, the cataclysm arose and, shit hit the fan big. So, and that's why I feel strongly with this big concept, because, I can kind of relate to it in a microcosm way, because long period, but then the opposite, because long period went shit, cataclysm, now I'm doing it right. So
I was always fascinated with the Kilimanjaro Dark Jazz Ensemble, because back in that time I was pretty much in contact with Nicolas from Ad Nauseam, and if I remember correctly, he released the first EP, didn't he?
No, Planet Mu released the first album. In 2006.
Planet Mu. Yeah, right.
And then Nick released Mutations. Here Be Dragons, and then Deno Valley released From the Stairwell.
And this was so fascinating because Mutations and Here Be Dragons, they were on this independent label. I mean, he was considered arguably one of the biggest labels for breakcore. But he was an independent label. It was a small scene. And then these jazz records appeared, and they were in my experience, this was the first time when people that didn't belong to the ecosystem of Ad Nauseam knew an artist that was on Ad Nauseam. And then with From the Stairwell, I guess I read in the papers, in the feuilleton part of the papers about it.
Could be, yeah.
Because this was really something. And then it vanished.
Yeah. Like the devil, it disappeared. Yeah, I mean, Kilimanjaro, I mean, that's a story in of itself. Gideon and I started the project, early 2000, or I think maybe the idea was maybe around 1999, 2000, where we had the first talks about, the concept of. I started playing around with jazz around 1999, 2000. I think on the BONG-RA Hiding Mask EP, there's a song called Dark Jazz. That was my kind of first experimentations into, chopping up jazz and going into a heavier part. Obviously, Amon Tobin was a definite influence on a new development of jazz and sampling. So that was a definite inspiration in there. And then we started composing around, I think, 2001 or 2002. And it was impossible. We couldn't get a label. No one was interested. No one wanted to sign. And I think in 2006, we gave each other a deadline. Say, okay, we'll go to end New Year's 2006. If there's no label, then we'll just call it a day, because it's not going to go anywhere. We I think we had the album ready, so we were shipping that. The thing was that I did some jazz remixes for Venetian Snares from his Hungarian album. And Mike Paradinas, he really liked this approach. He was really surprised because he thought he was going to get breakcore. And then I think this was like, I don't know, like a 2 weeks for Christmas or New Year. So I said to Mike, I said, okay, I have this project, Kilimanjaro, and we have an album ready, and it's either you release it or it's done. I've sent it everywhere. And he listened to it, and then he sent me an email, a week later, like a week, maybe a few days before Christmas or something like this. And he said, yeah, cool, let's release it, and it's like really like a week or something before we were just going to shelve the whole thing. So the Planet Mu release obviously gave us a lot of press, and the only thing was it went okay. The only thing, Planet Mu was then moving into the whole grime thing, with Mike was, focusing on, this IDM grime stuff. And he was always very clear, straightforward and honest. He said, I like the stuff, but it doesn't fit my, the profile, the concept I want to go with the label. Perfect. He's always been really cool with everything, represses and what so on. We started again sending it to bigger thing, labels. Okay, we have Planet Mu now. No one interested. We were already writing Mutations and had some ideas for Here Be Dragons. So then obviously I was releasing stuff on Ad Nauseam with BONG-RA, and I was like, okay, Nick,
what's good?
I know it's not this. I know it's not stuff you usually do, but, do you want to release this? Yeah, he said, of course, I'd be honored. It'll be great, And obviously I thought for him, for his label, it opened, new perspectives as well. I mean, the cooperation with Nick was great. It was fine. And, for, a one-man label, I mean, he did the absolute best he could, but he had to do everything himself. But we realized that it just wasn't, we were thankful that he was releasing it, but it wasn't getting the potential it should, which he knew. It's like if you have, I don't know, Ronaldo playing in a third division team, and he's like, it's time to move up. Yeah. So then Deno Valley came, and we jumped to Deno Valley, and they offered us, really good stuff, and their platform and their press and everything is is few steps more up the ladder. Yeah, and then unfortunately we were starting to get shows which were really well visited. We were selling out shows in Greece and stuff like this, and then we were it was 12 years, Gideon and me, and 7 years as the band. And I think it just took too long. It was, everyone gave it their best. And obviously a lot of, 7 creative people mixed together, not the easiest people.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It is, and I hold up my hand. I was far from being the easiest person either. And, looking back, there's a lot of things I would have done different today, but it is what it is, you live and learn.
The stoic kicks back in.
And so it ended there, but we left kind of a small cult status, which is it's good.
It definitely is. Funny enough that you went to Denovali. I mean, they are perfect for that kind of music. I just say funny enough because Timo is actually from the town where I live.
Okay.
Plus, I also know him. He's not the. I try to get him into the podcast as well, but you know how he is. He's very focused on his work, and apart from this, nothing much. Really.
I've never asked him, but I think he must be a hidden stoic, or if not, he's a stoic. He will be a stoic. I mean, he fits all the checklist of stoics.
Absolutely.
So I will ask him.
Absolutely, yeah. He's. I like him a lot. He's quite a character. But the music fits perfectly on the Denovali label. As does what you do now with MANSUR and the Lovecraft Sextet. Yeah. Because I don't know, Denovali is a strange label of its own. But they underwent a kind of process similar to yours. They had always a feeling for darkness, and they were kicking it off with some really dark, heavy bands. Like I remember these French guys, Celeste. They were This was heavy shit.
Some post rock, dark post rock.
Heavy stoner post rock, whatever. All the shows of them were just smoke, just the hazers on 100%. But nowadays it's a lot of dark jazz, a lot of soundtrack-ish music. So this is definitely something where what you said, the upcoming album of the Lovecraft Sextet with the John Carpenter vibe, you said, right?
Yeah. That's the follow-up. So we have the In Memoriam now, which is it's more kind of experimentations into kind of Gregorian kind of the whole funeral vibe, mourning, laying things to rest, death and rebirth are basically the concept of this one. And then the second one is where I started moving into, some chapters are definitely closed now, and now I can just look into where, interest lies and what are nice, interesting combinations and mixes to find.
But there will be another work by MANSUR as well, or?
Yeah, I have the fourth record is already done. Some vocals are missing.
Jesus.
This should be released. Let's see what we had. I think it's like February or March next year. Then the fifth album is nearly done as well. And I've started working on the sixth album.
Yeah, of course. So. Why not? Just 6. And the Lovecraft Sextet and something else to keep.
Martina, the singer of MANSUR, she originates from metal. She plays in the Hungarian avant-garde metal band Die Kattelfag, and we've become quite linked together musically. It's working really well. So we started a doom metal band because she always wanted to go into doom, which is also a passion of mine. So we wrote a doom album together. The project, it's called "The Answer Lies in the Black Void," and it's being released on the Roadrunner.
Really?
Roadburn. So Roadburn record.
Still great.
Roadburn. Yeah.
You have such. Excuse me. You have such a way with names. I mean, you once had a project, Servants of the Apocalyptic Goat Rave.
Yes, that's a good one as well.
that is a good one. I mean, the Kilimanjaro Darkjazz Ensemble and/or the Mount Fuji Doom Jazz Corporation are also very good names.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
I can't do it else than agree.
So you both have a record. Is it already out?
It's coming out 24th of September. So that's end of this month.
Yeah. So how many records a year? 3 records a year you do?
Last year was 7.
Shut the fuck up. 7? We had wait. We had 3 MANSUR records, right?
Yes.
We have the LOVECRAFT Sextet.
Yes.
We have the Doom.
The answer lies in the black void.
The answer lies
in the black void. And then my old doom metal band Celestial Season from the 90s.
Yeah.
We came back together again to celebrate the 25th year of our most famous album, Solar Lovers. And we wrote a new album and we re-released the first 2 albums. So that could basically make it 9 albums if you want to count the represses.
No, we don't have to. We really don't have to. Man, that's impressive. But as you mentioned Celestial Season, I have... This was one project that I stumbled upon on your Bandcamp page, and I was clicking several songs, and I was like, okay, what is this? And because some tunes reminded me a lot of Entombed, and others were like these, I can't say ambient, but more like a free form jam or so. So this is also Doom Stoner. This was Stoner.
Doom. It's Celestial started as a Doom Death band, and we kind of released our albums at the same time as My Dying Bride, Anathema, Paradise Lost, Cathedral. So in that period, early 90s, then shifted to transformation to more stoner in like 96. That's when I left the band after the first stoner album and when I started BONG-RA. And then the band kind of developed into this kind of more stoner grunge band. So basically Celestial has 2 identities. It has the Doom Death period, which was the most successful, and then kind of the stoner grunge kind of period. And the Doom Death period for me was a chapter in the book which wasn't closed, because we were becoming quite successful because we were with one of the more famous bands as well. We were we released, the album came out on Metal Blade as well, and I think we sold about 40 or 50,000 of that album. So back in that time, but when Solar Lovers came out, that's the most famous album. I was transforming into wanting to go more stoner, because the influences of Caius, you had bands like Electric Wizard, The Drugs were in there, obviously were a big influence. So I decided one day to the next to kick out the singer, because he was grunting and wanting to move more into normal. I was a normal vocalist. I was young, 21, 22, and looking back, I regretted it a lot, because it was incredibly harsh and unempathetic way. Of course, you're young and you're not as self-analytic, or you're not mature enough to understand, these dealings, these ways of empathic communication. So, I mean, this always stuck back in my head. I had contact with the other guys of Celestial, especially Ollie, was a school friend. So when the 25 years was coming up, I contacted two of the guys, Lucas and Ollie, said, okay, how about we form the old band and record a new album celebrating 25 years Celestial, but only if Stefan, the singer, if he's in, because he was a key part with his voice of being it, And I said, I also want this to be a journey to reconcile of past mistakes. So I got hold of Stefan, we had a coffee, and it was great. We talked about the shit which we were young, and obviously he's older, and kids, he understood how the things in life go, but the things still need to be discussed. And we said, okay, we got the group together, and we said, well, let's make an album. And it was amazing because we really warped back to 1995, and that energy was there. We wrote the album as if we hadn't stopped composing music together, and went really quickly. It's melancholic doom, so a lot of inspiration to get out of the period we were in and the things we were dealing with. So yeah, it was kind of more of a kind of healing process linked with having fun with settling a chapter in that part of life.
We just came back full circle.
I think so.
And
kind of.
And you know what? It's weird. Sometimes these conversations play out pretty good. Like we started when you said, Celestial season broke up and I started doing jungle. Then we went into the whole stoics and the mysticism and the hero's journey, and now we're at a point where you reunited with your old friends, and not with everyone. You parted ways on good terms. So there was a problem, an underlying problem, which is now solved, and out came something creative again. And yep. I think that's beautiful.
It is the cycle, and that's why these universal patterns and cycles, they're not there for no reason. It's no bullshit. It's just tap into it. It's free. It's Nikola Tesla said it. If you understand the numbers and the way the universe works, I mean, the power is free and it's there for everyone. Just have to know, I think, how to tap in and how to harness it in your own way. And it's beautiful. It's and the hardships are beautiful if you cherish them, and if you know that convince yourself that they will pass. Everything will pass. That. Sure. And we had that once. I'll try and send it to you. Did a poem of what's his name? I think it's Theodore Tilton, and this American poet, and we put the poet to poetry of one of his to one of these celestial songs, and it's called this poem's called Even This Shall Pass Away. Mm-hmm. And it's lovely. He managed to poeticize all these points from everything will pass. The kings will die as well, and no matter how big or how small you are, it will pass away. So yeah, live in the moment again. It is, and it's so hard to not be distracted, and I think that's the dark forces are the forces of distraction, to not make us be the most powerful in the potential that we have as human beings.
Well said. Hear, hear. Jason, it was a pleasure. It was such a pleasure. It was a fascinating journey to talk with you. You are such a prolific artist. And so I really can't say, if you want to get this man to know, you have to listen to this track, because your body of work is just so elusive and diverse. please tell people where they can find you and say hello, maybe.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, they can find most of, or if not all, my cataloged work on Bandcamp, and that's jasonköhnen.bandcamp.com. And I don't. Maybe you can put a link or something,
I will,
or you can
definitely.
Google my name. And there is all my catalog, and some are linked to other Bandcamps, like the Deno Valley releases. Go to the Deno Valley page, but you can get an overview of. I think it's probably around 70 releases or something, or 80. I don't know. I lost count. But thanks a lot. A very, very great talk. I loved it. It's very good. I love the way we fluidly went from everywhere and nowhere.
Yeah, we did. Thank you very much again. And you go for a holiday right now, a well-deserved one.
Yes.
So safe travels.
Thank you. And speak soon. Take care.
And we got it. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you've enjoyed it. All the links you need you'll find in the show notes. Please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and maybe say hi on YouTube, Instagram, or by email. And if you want to support this, please visit Steady for more information. Thanks a lot again. Take care. Be good. Till next time.